stock down, not holistically, and I know this is a piece that's a bit contentious for Bills fans. The Bills' run defense against the Green Bay Packers. I will say, I do think some of it was game script related. You heard some of what Leslie Frazier said, some of what Von Miller said in terms of like thinking the Packers were going to pass at some point, and the Packers were just content to keep running it for 6-7 yards a clip when they were down 3 scores. So I don't want to say that the Bills let them run at the end, because one, I think it takes away from the execution that the Packers had in that game, which was genuinely good, and some of that execution that they showed in the first quarter and second quarter and first half when they weren't down by 3 scores. And also, like, nobody wants anybody to run the ball down their throat or have success. But I do think there was some of that game script piece where the Bills were content to a degree in letting the Packers run and then getting down into the red zone or into some situational aspects, whether it was third down or the red zone, and tightening things up and then holding them to field goal attempts or, really dialing things up and holding them no points at all. So I think there was a bit of some game script pieces to it, but the Packers offense had a really good game plan coming into this game. They were running some zone. They were running some gap. They had misdirection. They had split flow and zone. They had some eye candy that was used for legitimate reasons, not just for the sake of eye candy, like a Matt Canada Steelers offense. They executed well. There's a run. It's a counter run to Aaron Jones in the third quarter, fourth quarter, I think third quarter. And Packers are in 12 personnel, but they're in an I formation. Their second tight end is lined up as the fullback. And he motions, short motion, to a strong I formation. And what the Bills do is they shift. This is funny because Joe heard the siren in the background. Yeah, I'm on fire. Well played. What the Bills do is they see that motion and they shift. And the Packers know they're going to shift because the Bills do this. But as the Bills shift, Rodgers snaps the ball. So the Bills are moving this way, thinking that, okay, maybe it's going to be a wide zone, outside zone, even mid zone. Maybe it'll be that zone toss that the Packers have been running and working consistently in the game up to this point. But instead, that fullback motions to that side. The tight end who's lined up as a fullback, we're going to call him a fullback for this instance. And then when the ball is snapped, stops and goes back to the other side. And Aaron Jones takes a false step this way and goes back to the other side because it's not an outside zone or that zone toss. It's a counter. And because the Bills have moved with that motion, they've set themselves up for failure. And now the Packers have set themselves up for success. They're able to easier execute their down blocks. The pullers that are coming through, they pull their tackle and they pull their fullback who go right up to the hole. They're able to easily go through that hole, turn, seal Tremaine Edmonds, get a nice clean gap for Aaron Jones to run through, and he gets a good chunk of yards first down, like a 12, 15-yard gain. Bills make the tackle. It was well designed. So I don't think the Bills are letting that happen. It was a good design from the Packers. My bigger concern is we've seen this from time to time last year and this year. Teams that are able to use motion, misdirection, and a variety of alignments and personnel in order to slow the Buffalo Bills defense down and or take advantage of their fast-flowing nature and aggressiveness. So I'm sitting there and thinking, again, maybe I'm playing too much of the long con here, and I'm just using this as an example. But if I'm a team like the Philadelphia Eagles and I'm going to play the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, and the Eagles have such a diverse offense, especially in the run game, they're able to do a lot of what the Packers did in this game. The eye candy and the misdirection and everything that you can do with that Eagles offense and attack through zone, that power zone aspect, or you want to go gap, whatever you want to do, let alone you have the added bonus of a weapon like Jalen Hurts, who's a huge threat on the ground. As they start to move forward, seeing some of these teams who can threaten the Bills in this way, I think it becomes a little bit of a concern. I don't think it's a sound the alarm, red flag, everybody panic type of issue. But the Packers had a good game plan and they executed that. The good news is the Bills have seen that again. Maybe that's something they add to their self-scouting repertoire in order to strengthen themselves as they move forward to the playoffs. So I don't think it's a complete panic. And it's even again with it being stocked down, I wanted to talk about it more because I know it's been a topic of conversation and consternation for Bills fans because some are, it's game script, it was fine, they let it happen, it doesn't matter. And then people on the other side think of this run defense was terrible, what the hell is going on? As always, It's very rarely one end of the spectrum or the other. It's usually in that gray. I think part of it, you have to tip your cap to the Packers for good execution, and having a good game plan and beating the Bills individually, and also having the numbers advantage at times on offense. And when I say numbers advantage, I mean having even bodies, right? Because if you've got 5 blockers for 5 defenders, you've got a body on a body, you've got a hat on a hat. But also, you always have one more gap than you have offensive linemen, or guys on the line. So if you've got 5 offensive linemen, that's 6 gaps. If you've got 5 offensive linemen and a tight end, that's 6 bodies. That means you've got 7 gaps. 2 tight ends on the line, that's 7 bodies. You've got 8 gaps, so on and so forth. So if you have equal numbers, if you've got 5 blockers for 5 defenders, that's advantage offense. If you've got 6 blockers for 6 defenders, that's advantage offense. If you get what I'm saying, even numbers are advantage offense. You can beat that if you're the defense by having somebody beat their man. Somebody has a quick get off, somebody gets penetration, somebody just executes well and beats their man at the first level or second level, causes havoc. Maybe you bring a defender from another area. But if it's straight up even numbers, blockers for defenders in the box, you can beat that with individual play and execution. Or you can have a numbers advantage and have as many defenders as there are gaps. So if there's 5 offensive linemen, that means there's 6 gaps. So you have 6 defenders in the box. What the Packers were doing is using motion and using alignments to pull defenders out. And so the Bills would have, 7 defenders for 6 men on the line. So they're good with gaps. Packers come through and throw a motion pre-snap. Defender rotates out, and now you've got 6 defenders for 6 bodies, which means you only have 6 defenders for 7 gaps. And the Packers were able to do that consistently, and seeing if teams continue to pick at that going forward is an interesting piece. That's the only reason it was a stock down for me. Again, I do think, like all things, it's a mixture of both. I think it was a bit of that game script and the Bills kind of just being like, okay, take your 6-7 yards a clip, waste 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes a clock. And then when it comes down to the red zone, we'll tighten up, force a field goal, or try and get a sack and push you out and really make life difficult for you. And the Bills played well situationally on defense in this game. But again, I don't think they just let them run all over them. But at the same time, I don't think they were playing for that aspect. I think they were very much playing for keep everything in front of us, bend but don't break, don't give up any touchdowns, keep this lead, or get more points on offense, which they should have. Josh Allen had some turnovers. I don't want to get into that aspect as of now, but there's a lot of variables that led to the performance of the Bills' run defense in this game. But again, it's a little bit of both. Don't panic. It wasn't terrible or as bad as you think it was, but also it wasn't nothing. And again, I think the tape speaks to that. And also, granted, the Bills won, so I was able to enjoy it more. The Packers did some good stuff with their run game, and I'm very interested to see if teams lean into that aspect with those heavier personnel pieces, that misdirection, that motion, more split zone, and trying to confuse and pull Bills defenders out of the box and then hitting them back in those vulnerable spots. So very interested, very interested.